Okay, well that is
maybe.
My last week was so unreliable because I really don't have
Hi,
this
Behrad.
spirit of graphic design.
all right. Cool. Is it okay?
I mean, I know
Yeah.
the taste of appreciating good stuff, but it's not my thing to do that. And graphic stuff and layout. So I started to, I asked you, I started to use templates from other people, and I was like, fuck this shit, I use so much time. So I actually did something really simple in terms of presentation. It was, yeah, just a presentation about
When
it.
you asked me, I get what you were saying.
Yes.
I was like, this never seemed to really, and I was like, I misunderstood it, and
I was starting to figure out everything because it was one week left. And no, it was the last, the portfolio bar basically.
but you even included the video inside it. I just
Yeah, but I hate it so much. But they were, it was the best comment, that I mean, it was really visible. And I was really surprised because I don't think I'm really good at speaking. And it was my first time, like you, I don't know, I guess. And it's actually difficult to make a fucking video, so now I don't know why Instagram and shit they actually have kind of talents. So it was really super cool.
I just realized I kind of just went with it. I don't remember in the presentation if I had a lot of cuttings because I would like I would record like long video and then it would just be like points where I'm like, okay,
And
focus,
breaking
and then
down,
like
I learned about
okay,
breaking
go
down.
again, and then I would just cut it out, right? This part, it's like make it shorter.
I learned to break down
long
this
videos.
stuff.
I'm really glad that I did. I started doing like a quick short private course of Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro, doing Premiere Pro for editing, and I'm so glad that I did it because honestly, I don't know how would I be editing. It's not hard, but I had like no idea.
It's not, I don't think it's super hard, but I think it requires a mindset to get it, and to get it, you have to try it. And
I mean, you have to spend like a day or two.
I was so happy with the my class was so good, and I was so happy. Thank you so much. At the end of the series, they were super calm, and I was so happy about it because they were sitting the whole time, and I was so happy they were so cute with me because I was freaking out a lot, because normally they always jump on me and shit. Sorry, what you were saying?
Oh, I forgot.
It's better. I'm happy that you want to put on because normally I will like a bad student behind, and then I have to focus on looking everywhere, looking at people.
It's fine. I mean, for that reason, I also sit strategically next to the colleague so I can see them. But yes, I want to.
Can you present yourself? I'm not here. Here's the thing. Me? Oh, okay. I read a really nasty article about the professional that say it's really not the time to apply for events jobs.
I don't know. I start hearing this shit when I was before or at the beginning of my course. I hear people.
So they're going to tell you.
Go into it. Now that I finished it, all I'm hearing is, oh well, it's really good to get like, well, I didn't know that 6 months ago. I was choosing.
No, no, don't see it like that because even though you change, even though you're not getting to everything, I think it's
You know, it is a good practice, but like,
that everyone is gonna think it's you know how it is.
it's just that, you know, it's just very scary. It's like, why did there's it's so hard. It's so hard to I just really want I mean, to be fair, I did get my
We did.
did, yeah. Previously. I don't know, I said it. And, so whenever this happens, I got to die. That's why I'm here.
I didn't look at anything so today.
So on second September, there's a tech job fair. Tech job fair.
Yeah.
And it's well, they're mostly focusing on tech jobs. So even if for UX or they were to
Second
like
of November, do you have to register somehow?
yes, you need to this is a very funky calendar.
Oh, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
so yeah, so this I registered for it and I registered on their website, which is job seeking people where they have to like upload their profile. And when they did that, they said, hey, we want to
You hear me, right?
I can probably do it.
Welcome. We're very excited. I'm over the moon. You don't see me, but I'm over there. To have you all of you with us. This means a lot to me, and I explained a bit. Just a bit of housekeeping. Over there, there are drinks. If you haven't got drinks, please get some. But otherwise, you have to bring it to the office. So, this is our first event. Maybe hopefully about UX team. We go in depth what it is. We have a great lineup today. Some of folks that are in the trenches in the industry are give a talk. But before that, this was not possible if the Spice Academy wouldn't graciously sponsoring us. It's literally one of the best sponsors we ever had. We suggest a date, they say yes, and we make it happen. So I would like to welcome Mary to the stage, to give the talk about Spice Academy.
Hi everyone. Hi, my name is Marie. I'm the Events and Community Manager at Spice. So this is what Spice is. We are a tech bootcamp. So we have 4 intensive 12-week courses that we offer. We have data science, data analytics, web development, and of course UX UI. That's how we get to know this community. So as I said, we offer very intensive courses, mostly for people that are unemployed or want to change career or upskill. and we have students from very different backgrounds. You know, we have tattoo artists, we have musicians, we have, you know, PhD in maths that are here that they want to have another chance at another career. I'll be around if you have any questions about our courses, but this is Spice. We love doing events. We love having new people around and building our community of, you know, design and tech lovers. So I hope you enjoy this event with Bonanza Design. Thank you guys.
I'm just going to keep it brief and talk about my own personal experience. Hopefully inspires you. So I'm the founder of Bonanza Studios. We are a growth studio for SaaS startups. We work with enterprises of multi-billion annual revenue as well as growing startups. And this year, we decided to take more trouble and add more work to our already busy schedule and launch UX Gym. It's a training program. It's only a training program. And hopefully Yari goes a bit deeper in it. But this is personal to me and why I committed doing this. I am a self-taught UX designer. I've been in this industry for 11 years. I've climbed up the career ladder, if you say so. I've been part of 2 founding teams, experienced all sorts of scenarios in the startup world, unicorn, bankruptcy, stable growth, crazy growth, fast forward. I have been a mentor at one of these big online UX training courses for 2.5 years, trained over 50, 60 designers. I've hired over 100 UX designers in my career for different startups and for my own studio. And the reality of the market here is not the honeymoon of UX industry is over, if I can put it in good words. It's saturated. And competition is fierce than before. In 2010-11, when I started, there was only Adobe Photoshop. And when I approached clients, the question was, can you design a website? It wasn't about, can you do design system, Figma, or can you do these crazy things? It was like, can you just design it? Because I want to build it. So the bars were low. There was not a course. There was not a university degree for UX design. Fast forward, now we have an abundance of all of this. But what I'm seeing after years of being in the industry, UX designers graduate and they are under-trained. And it pains me. I've moved a couple of folks that I was mentored with at this online course, and I founded Bonanza Studios with them. They helped me grow the business, but what I realized that they need training. So I trained them while we were doing project, which was a crazy thing, right? But so what I'm trying to say, if you're a talented designer, with a little bit of training, structured training, you really can upscale your career. And that's something is missing in this massive UX industry that I am seeing, right? So it's personal to me because I've seen a lot of UX designers graduate, they have excitement to join UX design market, but they don't because their hands are not tired, their hands are not trained, and their eyes are not trained. It's 2 things. I always use this example. Do you buy the first sculpture of a sculptor? No, it's not good. But there are 100 or 1,000 sculpture. That's something you may consider. Same like our craft. UX design is a craft. You really need to get solid training. So that's why we set up the whole UX design gym training. And it's something that is connected to my heart. So we thought it's not enough to just do training. We gotta go more and bring folks together and talk about UX design market, UX craft of UX. And this is the first joining us. It means a lot to me. I want to keep it brief because there is really good content we lined up for today, this evening. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Behrad, one of our designers at the Bonanza Studios. Take over. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's been like amazing that you are here and finally something that it's physical, not on the laptop, because we've been conducting those webinars and events virtually. So I'm really happy to see you all here. And I'm gonna talk about, like, the first idea was to talk about the portfolio and how to create that. But I think it's gonna be better if I talk about how to become a product designer and the path for it. And one of the examples that I'm gonna be focused about is a bit of my career. So I want to talk about my story, my lucky story. That's a really, really important one. Keep in mind that this is a huge part when you're in your business career. Luck comes in handy, but actually to increase your chances, you need to do a lot of stuff. So you will wait for the chance to happen to increase your essentially amount of tickets that you have. You need to do certain stuff. And if you see on the presentation, the check mark, that means there's something that I've done right, and I was lucky to do it right. And if you see the yellow part, that means that I didn't do it, and you should be doing it. So without further ado, let's start. And at the beginnings, actually when I was really, really young, the first thing that I really loved and I was passionate about was a graphic design. And as you may know, this is one of the 3/3 of the UX designer. It's really, really important to understand those topics. So I was lucky because that was my passion, and I spent around 10 years figuring out how to draw, how to use Photoshop, Illustrator. So I already had those knowledges and those skills. And then the second part is about the creativity. And this is something that I've also learned during my career before I've become a UX designer. And this is also really important part because, as you can imagine, we're innovators. We need to come up with new solutions basically each day. It's pretty hard, but you can master it. And the third part, which is in my opinion the third pillar of becoming a great UX designer, is an engineering. And this was actually the start of my career as a UX designer. So I've never graduated anything regarding graphic design. I've never touched upon a UX marketing. I was a system engineer. So that's how I started. I was learning programming. I was learning how to code, and I've never heard about UX design. So this is one of the things that I did really good, but I never knew that I've done really good. So actually, by an accident, I were interested in graphics, in creativity, and in engineering, which are the three really, really important parts in the UX industry. Especially now, as we come up to the point where there's a lot of tools, and you need to be a bit more analytical, and the market is super saturated. You need to differentiate a bit and think strategically. That's where this engineering mind comes in handy. So one of the things that you can learn from that is spend some time learning how to code and learning the technical aspect of our industry. First things first, you will collaborate with developers. And you will be really pissed about that because you will create something beautiful. They will come in and say, no, we're not gonna do it. It's gonna take us 3 months. And you're gonna be pissed, client's gonna be pissed. And to avoid those situations, if you know a bit how to do this, it's gonna be much easier to essentially talk to them. And you're not gonna see a devil in them, we just see a friend. So these were the beginnings. I went to the college as an engineer, and I realized that I need money, so I was starting looking for a job. And it was pretty hard, not as hard as it is right now. But I've got a really cool offer that was in HR. I don't know shit about HR, but I've got an offer, and it was a paid job, and I almost said yes. It was to the huge company, you might know it, Whirlpool. They primarily took me into the consideration because I knew a couple of words in English, and that was the only requirement. So I was really happy, and then actually one of my friends said that I can have an unpaid internship as a graphic designer. And that was really hard for me to choose. Money over passion. Yes, passion. Unfortunately, I took in passion. It was a bit hard. My girlfriend needed to borrow me some money because I was broke. I needed to do something for free for a month. And what's even worse about that is I hated it. It's just like, I thought the graphic design is just being creative, doing really cool stuff. And for the first 2 weeks, I've just created prints. It was super, super annoying, and I was a bit of depressed at this point because my one goal after like finishing the engineering degree, I figured out that that's not it. It's too technical and the code is too hard. I mean, it's really hard. I want to do something creative, become a really big person or something like it. So I thought the graphic design is a great choice, which was not. But that's where I've actually met my first mentor, and he introduced me to UX design. It was just like a dream come true because we were talking about some stuff, and he said, "Have you heard about Webflow?" And I was like, "Sounds really good. What is it?" And he introduced me that the Webflow is actually a tool where you can build websites, and there is a person called UX designer. And I'm like, "Oh my god, UX, that sounds really awesome. What is it?" And he introduced me to this combination of being a graphic designer, being an engineer, and having a creative or entrepreneur mind. And I was just like immediately sold on to it. I just spent hours and hours working in this environment for free, of course, creating websites for free, designs for free. I didn't know anything, but I've spent a lot of time. And this is another thing that I would really, really, really like you to know at this point. Experience is a much more important thing at the beginning than money. So I know that it's tempting to earn money at the beginning, but it's just an investment. You can either get an HR job and earn from the beginnings, or just risk a bit, take a chance into your, the things that you're passionate about, and just try it out. Again, luck comes in. It wasn't only my skills that were really poor this time, and that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So, beginnings in the UX. What I think I've done good is what you should also be doing. So, redesigning and copying stuff is a really good practice. Why? As a child, how you learn to speak. You just repeat what your parents said, and that's it. And this actually model works when you're really, really, really old. You just need to repeat. And that's actually how I learned how to design stuff. My mentor said, just take a screenshot of the YouTube and recreate it in Figma. I said, nah, come on, I'm not recreating stuff. I want to, design cool websites, create a second Facebook of some sort. But I've done it anyway, and it really helps because UX designer has a certain eye to specific things. So it's really hard to describe because it comes with an experience. But at some point when you're looking at this design, you just immediately see that the spacing is off. And it works even with just like a pixel. Like if something is shifted with like margin of 1 pixel, you can immediately see that. And the only thing and the only way to obtain those skills is to practice and repeat. So this is super important, even for the mid and senior designers. At Bonanza Studios, that's where I'm working in, we've done a series called UX Matter. And there, we just simply redesign, just let's be honest, badly designed websites, often popular companies. And I was doing it for a month and a half. And honestly, I've started to hate my job. I was really pissed about that because it was so annoying. I needed to just redesign stuff, redesign. And I didn't really like it at the beginning. But after a year from this experience, I realized that I've created a library of components in my head. Right now, when I'm designing something, I just remember, okay, I've done it with the redesign of the post or the mobility. And it actually works. I don't need to spend tons of time on research because I've done this really hard sprint of redesigns. And this is something that I would really encourage all of you to do. Just spend, 20 minutes a day doing one thing, one redesign, or focus on typography hierarchy. Repetition is really key to success. Other thing that I've done pretty good is master Figma. Because I was engineer and I like really numbers and programs, when I saw how to layout and constraints on the components and design system and this kind of stuff, I was falling in love, and I spent a lot of time just mastering Figma, understanding each part of those. And what I can see from a junior designer is that you start, and then you see the right side of the program where you have some numbers, and you just let me ignore that and focus on cool designs. And this is really, really bad because once you start working, the right side and the left side of your program, where you actually put all of the variables, all of the technical aspects, it's probably the most important part. So you're primarily working with those. And if you're not understanding them, how you can become a good designer without understanding the main tool that you're using? So I've done it by accident, just keep in mind. I didn't know that this was actually a good idea. I was just assuming it is. So this was one thing. And the other, which we'll talk about briefly later, is that I created a proper portfolio. What I mean by portfolio is not PDF or just PNG file that you send out with your CVs. I've actually created a website using Webflow and copying exactly one-on-one the same things that I could see on the YouTube, which brings me to the things that I've done really poorly, and you should really avoid. At the beginnings, I wasn't honest, so if I created design, I said, that's totally mine, I'm so good. Actually, I just copied stuff from YouTube tutorials and put it under my portfolio, which, like, when I do a retrospective, this was a pretty bad idea. I mean, if there would be any hiring managers seeing that I just straight up copied everything that I saw and just put it under my portfolio, yeah, they're probably not gonna hire me. I was lucky enough that the hiring manager didn't know about this, so that was cool. Which brings me to another part. Don't put literal design copies in your portfolio. When I said learn by copying design, I'm not meant that you should be designing a YouTube screen or YouTube screenshot and putting it under your portfolio. This is not that impressive, so please avoid that. And the other thing that I've messed up pretty badly is quality over quantity. So on my studies, I've learned that if I have any case study to prepare for the exam or some sort, I just need to put as many words as possible to pass the exam. Typically works. I just put 3 pages. My not mentor, but like the person behind the course just sees it, says, I don't want to read this, gives me 3, and I'm out. And I was really happy about that. And I thought that in our industry, this works the same. We just need to create a portfolio with a bunch of words. No one will gonna read that, but if you put more, that means you know more. So my case studies were like blank text, one screenshot, and that's it. And I was, of course, they're gonna read that, and no one read it anyway. Also, in terms of amount of things that I've put in, I'm not sure why, but I had a section in my portfolio which said photos, and I put 20 photos that I've made with my smartphone. And this was more significant in my portfolio than my case studies. So you're trying to hire a UX designer, you come into my portfolio and see that I'm a photographer. Don't know what the person that hired me thought. I don't know why I got hired, but it was pretty lucky. But at the same time, there was one thing that I think was really, really important at this point, and he saw that I've made it myself. So I've explained that I've created this website myself. And this was really, really huge point. So keep in mind that you don't need to do everything perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, but just make sure to nail at least some of the points. Okay, I've got a job finally, despite those mistakes, and I wanted to express something really important for me, because typically people think that in our industry, getting a job is really, really hard. You need to do some crazy things to actually get to the job level. I don't really like that because this is totally not true. It's just time consuming and it's really hard to understand for most of the people. It was really hard to understand for me. And what I mean by that is you think that you're gonna do everything in 1 month and get a job immediately, but that's not the case. People work years and years. To give you a short example of mine, I thought I was really, really lucky because I've got a job from learning what UX is to creating my portfolio and finally getting my first internship in a month and a half, which was super quick. I was just like, yeah, I'm amazing. Yeah, I was really lucky. Then I've come to a resolution that I was really lucky. Like it was super luck, but at the same time, I realized that these 3 pillars that we were mentioning, graphic design, creativity, engineering, which is super important for our industry, I was doing it for like past 10 years. And then I realized, oh, so that's where you need to spend some time actually understanding those things. And right now, what you would assume is that when you go to a training or course, in 12 weeks, you can just get to a level that you simply get a job. And that's totally possible, but you just need to spend 120 hours on practicing. And these hours are roughly what I spent on all of those things. In terms of theory, that's the first thing that I did. I've just read a lot of books at the beginning, watched tons of YouTube videos, then practice, as I said, redesigns, and just copying stuff, straight up copying to understand what Figma is. And then another part where you actually need to create something to convince people to hire you. So just be patient about what you're doing. It's not hard, it's just really, really time consuming. When we are talking about portfolio, a couple of tips that are really, really important on this one. First, build it by your own. A lot of people on our webinars, or when I'm talking to them on our community, are asking, can I do it in PDF? Can I send a Figma file? Can I use some templates? And that's completely fine, probably, when you're a senior with 10 years of experience, because no one will look at your portfolio, they will probably hire you because of your experience on LinkedIn. If you're beginning, you need to convince hiring managers. Am I right? So to give you a perspective, we will talk about it later, but there is a lot of applicants per one job. And by a lot, I mean 200, it could be, even more. Yeah, more, okay, so, let's, and just keep in mind that you need to differentiate yourself. And if you're gonna go with the easy path, probably 80% of those people that are trying to get a job will go with. So just spend some extra time and build it by your own. And there are two things that are super important when you're building your portfolio, and there are, of course, there's a lot more, but I think these are the key ones that people are tempted to forget. Really focus on details, even grammar mistakes. This is something that happens a lot, and this tells a lot by a designer who created those portfolios. If you're not spending time on just checking your grammar, if you're gonna do it for your client, recruiter probably thinks no and just goes away. So these even small things like being pixel perfect with your design, like trying to align everything, this is super important. And something that I also missed on, keep it simple. So don't try to overcomplicate stuff, because this is even hard for me. Like creating something complicated requires a lot of work, and being simple and straight to the point is really important, especially if on average people will spend 8 seconds on your portfolio. So you need to be really on point, simple, so they see all of the key things immediately. Here are some examples on how to do a proper, at least a hero section. I just wanted to put in there. By the way, this is something that I've created for the webinars that we have. A free portfolio template that you can just analyze and check and adjust to your likings. There are certain just areas that I described there that you just simply follow and make sure that your portfolio will look great at the end. So you can see that this is pretty basic. It's not a rocket science, and it will work. Like, this is what you need to be focused on at the beginnings. Keep it simple, a simple column layout, use your photos, use clear font, and use straight up copy that describes who you are. So just a visual representation and to showcase that it's actually easy. It's just time consuming. Okay, so you have portfolio. You have a bit experience with Figma, you have a bit experience with some other tools, maybe a UX, UI part, and let's find a job. And this is the part that's probably a lot of people struggling with. First and foremost, just a reality check before that. Typically, I've asked a question on our webinars, what's more important for the business, UX or UI? There are mixed answers, but in generally people tend to lean towards UX. Because those decisions that you've made, for example, creating user flows, user testing, creating a concept, these are the things that are really expensive to make. And these decisions that you need to make there are really expensive. Why? Because if you screw up something on the user flow, it's gonna be created with the interface, and it's gonna be coded. And then, on the testing of the app, when people realize that something is not working with the concept, you need to abandon all of the work that you've put in. So the interface, the development, and need to scratch everything. Whereas when you make a mistake on the UI level, it's pretty fine. I mean, there is some minor changes, but concept doesn't change. And a lot of junior designers want to put in their portfolio the UX skills. So showcase that they're really familiar with user research, user testing, concept, etc. But if you realize that as a junior designer, you're probably not gonna be making those decisions, because who's gonna allow you to make those decisions that could cost like tens of thousands of euros if you're not experienced? These are the parts that senior UX designers will make. You, of course, will be introduced to them, but as a junior designer, you're probably gonna be doing things like I did, so icons, branding, basic UI landing page designs. And to keep that in mind, if you're gonna be trying to get a junior designer job, you don't necessarily need to showcase your user research skills, because all of the people know that to obtain those, you need an experience. People will be looking at your UI skills, and you need to master those basics to jump up the level. So this is something that I would really encourage you to do, just not skip on those. It's super, super important. Of course, you need to scratch the surface of every field, but this is something that's probably missed. That actually for the junior designers, UI skills are really, really important. Other thing when you're doing is to read job offers properly. So if you see the job title, it's not enough. If you see junior product designer, please don't apply immediately, because you can't just burn bridges. One cool story that I had is that I've seen, like, I've done the mistake of those. I've seen junior product designer and I was like, yes, I'm gonna apply to that. I didn't read the description, and then I get a call that the product design wasn't digital, and people were asking what's my experience with CAD. And CAD, it's a tool to design actual parts, for example, for the engine. And I was like, oh, so that the product design meant digital, like not digital. Okay, that's fine. And I've burned bridges with this company. They think I'm stupid and I don't read descriptions, and that's what it was. So keep that in mind, that this is really, really important. And other thing that I actually did, and that's why I've got a job, is instead of just applying with your LinkedIn or with Glassdoor or with something like this, make sure to also look into the small agencies of the place that you're living in and ask directly. This actually works because usually small startups are tempted to invest in young designers to actually train them and create someone that's really, really talented. So they're looking for not necessarily experienced people, but something that they obtain cheap and train to be a really, really good designer. So reaching out to small agencies, to people, is a really, really good option. Okay, so what you also should avoid is really important part. It's track your applications and properly read them. I didn't do this at all, and I've applied to 100 companies, and then I've got emails, and I didn't even remember that I applied to a certain company. It was really bad because I probably pissed off a lot of recruiters in my place of living, so I didn't get a chance to get a job in multiple companies because I was just straight up, I don't know who you are, whereas I've applied there like 3 days ago. So it's really, really good idea to even have a Google Sheet and just track all of your applications, put it in there. It's much easier. Be patient. This process will take you a long time. Unfortunately, again, you need to wait for the luck a bit, because if there is a 400 applications, it's just really hard to go through all of them and be essentially objective at all of the times. And even if you go to the specific ones, you still need to choose from, like, let's say 10 to 20 that you really like. So this just requires a bit of time, and I was frustrated really quickly. I was like, oh, nobody likes me, they just don't want to hire me. But it actually just takes time. It could be that they don't even see your portfolio because they found someone already. So be patient. And this is also another part that I've made a mistake of, which is be realistic on the recruitment task. I've got a really cool offer, and I've got a task for it. And I was super excited because I thought, oh my God, that's my chance. That's my chance to shine. I'm gonna destroy this recruitment task. The task was about creating app for a Tesla, where you can find your charging stations. Amazing. I really like that. So I've created a mobile app, working prototype with Figma, with wireframes, high fidelity design system. I spent time to create a full-blown presentation, user persona, user tests. I've spent like 20 hours on it, and then it just goes through. What it was probably is a scam. They just wanted to do something for free, and I've just got myself into it. So keep that in mind. If you see the task that takes you like 30 hours to make, it smells fishy. And actually, I've got 2 other job offers where I just straight up, I saw these designs that I need to, again, design 10 screens. And I said, no, I'm not gonna do it, but I've explained why. I've explained that just showcasing my skills with only 7 designs, I would need to do a research, do a competitor analysis, probably spoke to some of your stakeholders, and then I can conduct to create at least a wireframe of an idea. Without that, I'm just assuming that I'm right, which is not the way I work. I've explained all of those and said that my time is too valuable to actually spend 20 or 30 hours of the task. I would maximum spend 3 to 4. And what they responded with calling me and saying, okay, you can design 2 screens. And I was like, that's weird. I've actually designed not 2, but 1, because I've argued, no, I'm gonna design 1, but back up my choices with a certain things. So for example, I said that, hey, I've made this because of that, I've linked the case studies, etc. And 2 times I've got an offer. So keep that in mind. This is actually could save you a lot of time and disappointment. And at a certain point, you will finally get a job. I got it into really, really small agency. It was 1 person actually, and with me there was 2 people in the company. So I was really, really happy to get my first job. And there are certain things that I've done, fortunately, but there are also certain things that I did badly, which I will also talk about. So once you got a job, that's not an over. That's not that you, okay, I'm gonna sit and just earn money. That's where you need to really, really care and spend some time. Really, it's not like you're gonna only learn with your 8 hours of your work. Just after the work, try to read, try to watch videos. This is, by the way, a really cool thing, how you can learn, actually. Because sometimes, for me, if I'm reading too much books and I'm reading too much case studies and articles, I'm just like, I don't care about the UX at this point. There are too many, there's no fun in that. I'm just learning. So what I've done is I combine it with fun. I've watched, for example, redesign challenges on YouTube. So this was like, for example, a live stream where there was a really experienced designer that took his fans' portfolios and just redesigned it and showcased what they're doing wrong. And it was fun for me to watch. It's really satisfying if people improving something. And I watched it for hours. And yes, I would benefit more if I would read books for hours, but I wouldn't have that much fun. So by combining those things, I learned a bit, but also have fun. So this is one of the practices that I think you should be doing as well. And the other part that's really, really important, and people are forgetting about really often, is to be curious and learn outside of the industry. We, as a UX designers, that's a statement, we're gonna design a lot of things, not specifically in one industry. You can be designing for a fintech, so some, I don't know, banking app, and then you will transfer yourself to design a tennis application where you will track bookings, for example, which are 2 different industries. And you need to actually understand both of them if you understand users. And how to understand users? You need to understand industry. And how to understand industry? Just keep your interests in all over the place. If you're gonna learn that, it will give you the benefit when you're starting in the industry. You already know a bit about that. Also, inspiration comes in handy in every way possible. For example, reading books about psychology could help you understand how people are interacting with your products. And this is, again, just try not to be focused only on the UX. Even just going for a walk on the city and just looking at the architecture solutions. This could be really helpful because guess what? Building is actually a product that someone designed. And there is a lot of inspirations in the real world that we can apply to a digital one. Product design and websites came from paper articles. This was essentially the first, like an iconography, branding, aligning the text on it. That's the father of all of those things. So you can find a lot of inspiration in those small things. So be curious, just observe, try to note. I'm sometimes even looking really weird just taking pictures of the posters because I found the font really cool. And at some point I'm gonna use that for a client. So this is super, super important. And yeah, thanks. In short terms, what I wanted to showcase with this presentation is that there are a lot of things that you will do wrong. I've done those, but there are a lot of the things that you will do right. And you just need to be really, really focused on those things. And if you see that something is going wrong and you've made a mistake, that was just unlucky because you didn't have the knowledge about it. And this was also in my case. I was a bit more lucky, but at the same time, I've spent a lot of time practicing the small details, actually the creative part, the engineering, and just it worked. So just be persistent and it should be fun, guys. Thank you for listening. Now it's a brief time for a Q&A. If you would like to learn more about the things that I've talked about, you have QR codes both for my LinkedIn and the UX Gym, the training. I'm a mentor there, so if you want to hear me more and learn a bit more about portfolios, specific of case studies, be sure to check it out. And right now, if you have any questions, I will be pleased to respond to that.
When was that? When did you start at Bonanza? When did you land your first job?
Yeah, so I started working Bonanza around 2 years ago, I think, and I landed my first job around 2 or 3 years ago. So in total, I have around 5 years of experience as a product designer. But previously, I've worked as a freelancer, graphic designer, not a product designer. Essentially, since I was interested in Photoshop and Illustrator, I've done those things for 6-7 years, I guess. And then the system engineering part, which I will go to.
Do you study system engineering or graphic design?
No, I studied system engineering. I didn't want to be a graphic designer because it felt too much like an art. And I really like math. So that's why I went through a system engineering. And the system engineering, yeah, I don't know, honestly. After 3.5 years of studying that, I don't know shit about it. It didn't, like, I thought it's gonna make me a programmer and I will earn a lot of money, which that wasn't the case because I'm a product designer. And essentially it was like combination of everything. Like it was a programming, it was even a UX of some sort, and then it was marketing, and then it was financial things. I honestly don't recommend that. It was a bit weird.
I never heard of this.
This was really, really weird. That's why I've chosen that, because I didn't know what to do, because there wasn't such thing as a YouTuber when I started. Probably I would go down this path, which would be really hard. But anyway, I wanted to find the studies that I could make money and be interested in. I was too dumb for being a programmer, so I needed to switch to something easier. And I heard about the system engineering, and I was like, yeah, this sounds really cool. I don't know what it is, but let me apply. And that was where I got my first university degree. So do not recommend that, please. Ignore system engineering, it's really stupid.
I have a question about portfolios, if it's okay. Yeah. So I recently graduated from SPICE and I'm working on my portfolio. I'm really bad at writing content. So in my portfolio, in my case studies, I really struggle to write content, what I've done. So is it important to have, like, explain what you have done, or it's fine to just showcase the designs and pictures?
Really good question. It's a fine balance between explaining and over-explaining. Sometimes there are portfolios where you explain that I've used this color because I really liked it, and this font looks amazing, that's why I've used it. That's a BS, let's be honest. So just strip it down. What you need to actually explain is what your thought process behind it. It's really hard because I wasn't teach this, so I needed to essentially learn that during the process. My portfolio was really shitty about every content. I just made a title that I've made mobile app, and that's it. So this is really hard. Generally, I would advise to use ChatGPT, but it's not necessarily a point. It's a really good thing for an inspiration, but please and please, this is for all of you, do not copy and paste things from ChatGPT to your portfolio. Immediately I can see that you're using ChatGPT. If I'm speaking to a person, I see that his or her language abilities, like English abilities, are like mine, it's fine. But when I see on their email, like, I've unleashed my experience, I'm really grateful for your interest, I'm just like, come on. Like, no. So ChatGPT really cool for an inspiration. Try to keep everything short, and yeah, just don't overcomplicate. Use 1 or 2 sentences to explain your thought process.
Okay.
What were the UX books that you read? Sorry. Live stream. Thank you.
What were the UX books that you read? Maybe you could recommend 1 or 2.
I read them in Polish, and I don't think you guys
I'm also
will.
Polish, so you can tell me.
Actually, you are. Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna call it in Polish to you privately because all of you guys will don't understand it, and you will think that I'm just, I don't know, complaining about you. But in general, it was design of everyday objects. That was really cool one. And I've done a bunch of on the psychology side as well. I think, for example, the ones that Harari made, Homo sapiens, etc. This, I know it's not a UX related field, but this will explain a lot of things in terms of psychology, how we think. So this is really cool. Atomic Habits, another one. There are a bunch of different ones that I'm not sure how to do. So I will check it out, and maybe we could also send it out via email to all of you.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Okay, so is there anything more you want to ask me, guys?
I will try. So you mentioned earlier that it was better when you start to focus on the UI because you will not take those big ass decisions basically during the project. But what about UX research design? If you're more into these things than UI.
Yeah. So in my experience, I totally did not do those because I had an engineering background, and this requires a lot of research. So I take it for granted that everyone is doing it. When I went to inside the industry, I've learned that this is a skill. I didn't even know that UX research exists. So typically, we're gonna spoke about that in the next fields that we prepared. But typically, for example, if you are a programmer, you first need to learn really good one language of coding, for example, Python. And then once you master that, you will transition to a certain different fields. Like you will, for example, go with the databases, or you will focus on the front-end side, etc. In the UX, it's a bit different. Actually, it's an opposite thing. So what you need to do in the first place is to learn everything bit by bit. You need to learn a bit about the UX research. You need to learn a bit about the user testing, about the competitor analysis, about the user flows, about the wireframes, design systems, etc. But one thing that needs to be on top is the something that we can see, which is a UI design. User research, then, if you get a job, everything will come much easier if you learn all of those different things a bit more. So getting a job is just the beginning, then you will need to actually work, and if you work, you don't have time to learn because you're learning by working, so you need to learn on top of that to keep up with the pace. It's gonna be really hard, That's why, despite, like, if you're looking for a job, it's not like, okay, right now I'm looking for a job, I'm gonna sit in one place and just send out CVs. You can constantly work on your portfolio, and you can constantly do research, read books. So UX research, a really, really important part. Probably you're gonna do it next after a couple of months of your work. This could be a part of your job assignments. Okay, let's have, I guess, okay, gotcha. Then thank you, everyone. We have another speaker in the queue. So thank you for listening, and yeah, enjoy the next.
Thank you, Yara. That was very informative. So next up we have Darshan Gajara. Yeah, so thank you very much.
I think.
Hello.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot, Abigail and the Spice and Bonanza team for having me here today. So today I'm going to talk about how you can become hireworthy. I'll tell you some practical advice from my personal experience about how you can get hired and get promoted in your career. And I realized that as recruiters have to be here to change this life. Sorry about that. It would be rude of me if I did not introduce myself before starting. My name is Darshan Gajara. My last name is Gajara. It often gets mispronounced in Germany because it's not Y, it's J. So I just want to set it straight. But then, you don't really have to refer to me by my last name. You can just call me Darshan. We can be friends. We can be on the first name basis. I'm a designer and maker living in Berlin. I have been living in Berlin for about 4 years now. I moved to Berlin from Mumbai. It was quite an unfortunate time when I moved here because it was just the start of the pandemic. So the city was not how it was supposed to be. But I used that opportunity to see the beautiful parts of Berlin. So I did some local exploration, so that was quite nice. I currently head design at Highgraph, which is a Series B headless CMS startup. It started from a very small town in Gießen, which is near Frankfurt. Most of you might have never heard of it. But then, as we became bigger, we got an office in Berlin and we got headquartered here. So now we have 2 offices, and the company is also about 80 people. So we have scaled that, and I oversee the day-to-day design operations there and have a team of 6 multi-designers. I also run a side project called as Product Disrupt. It's a place where you can go to learn design. It has all the curated resources over there. Everything over there is free. I've used all the resources personally when I was teaching myself design from the internet. I've not really let any peer pressure come into it to really change the resources or doing any favors on anyone. It's only those resources which I really find really good, and I use them on a regular basis. So I can at least guarantee you that. And I also sometimes teach design at Coho. It's a cohort-based online education platform. They have a lot of different streams over there, but I usually teach the modules on design leadership. When I'm not doing all of this, I like to travel. When I'm traveling, I like to take pictures and tell stories. That is what I'm going to do here. And I'm always looking for the unusual experiences, and gratefully, Berlin is not short of those experiences. Every other day there will be some unusual experience over here.
Before we really get into the session, I would want you to think about this question. That what is your biggest challenge that you're facing right now? I see that some of you are starting in your career, or you might be 2, 3 years into your career and you might be having some challenges. We will have a little bit of a question and answers round at the end of this. So you can ask me those questions, I'll try to help you. But I cannot really start the session today without addressing the current situation that we are living in. The world right now is in a bit of a tense situation. We are facing a big economic downturn, which obviously leads to a lot of layoffs. There have been some mass layoffs that have been happening for the past couple of years now. I was just looking at the stats recently, and I saw that so far in 2023, it's not even ended yet. US has had 170K people laid off from tech companies, which is quite a huge number. So it's hard, and I'm not an economist to get into the details of what's happening over here, but then it also doesn't take an economist to know that when the demand is low but the supply is higher, it is obviously going to lead to fierce competition. And we are also going through a revolution now. Every 10 or 15 years, we have revolutions like this. The first one that I remember is Industrial Revolution, where people were forced to work with machines. Before they were working in agriculture and mostly doing the work with their hands. Then there have also been other revolutions like the digital age, where people are forced to work with computers. So you naturally need to upskill yourself every 10 or 15 years, and a lot of jobs are destroyed, a lot of new jobs are created, and that's happening with AI right now. I don't really know where this is going, but these are definitely uncertain times. So I think it's important to keep things in context and first to establish that what is the current situation. It would have been very different 2 or 3 years ago when technology was booming and there were startups everywhere. To share a funny story, there's a friend of mine who was going to start a startup in Berlin. That guy didn't even have a product yet, he just had an idea. Of course, he had Caliber, he was working at Amazon, he was a good engineer, but they didn't even have a prototype, and VCs were ready to throw money at them. And that was the situation. There was a lot of surplus of money, so it was, of course, easier to raise money, and then by that you can also start growing the company and hire more people, but that's not happening right now. So it's important to keep that in mind, that the times are tough, so you need not be very hard on yourself. With that, let's look at how we can get lucky, because believe it or not, luck plays a huge factor into anyone's success. And you can't really do much about luck, right? You can't really create luck out of thin air. But what you can do is you can increase the surface area of luck. What I mean by that is, you can put in the work, which can attract more opportunities, and also it will put you in a position that you would be ready to grab that opportunity when it comes your way. So I just want to give some practical advice to you about how you can create that luck. Number one, share your work online. This is not any kind of gospel. It's very obvious, but it always amazes me that how people miss on obvious things. When you start sharing your work online, it is going to take a life of its own. It no more just belongs to you, and it's not just only your work. People are going to respond to it differently. If you get lucky, it might attract just the right opportunity for you. What I mean by sharing your work online, you can, as designers, we have this unique ability that the work that we create can be visual in nature a lot of times. And this is something that we can share online. You can make case studies of your work. And when I say make case studies, I don't really mean that you should create those bullshit factory case studies where everything follows the same template and same format. Trust me, I've been in this industry for little more than 10 years, over a decade. I've hired a lot of people, have interviewed a lot. When I see a factory outlet case study, it just instantly creates a very negative emotion because I know that a lot of things in those case studies are just copy and paste. Garrick was also talking about it a little bit earlier in the session where he was telling you that if you just try to copy and paste things from ChatGPT, the person who is going to screen you, they would at least have that understanding and they can see through it. So it's better to be honest than to just create material which is just copied. And when I say create case studies, your goal should be to tell a compelling story. When you have worked on something, especially if it's a real project, you can explain what the problem was and the different approaches that you use to try and solve that problem, the challenges that you face, and how did you really come to a solution. And of course, the solution is something that really matters the most over here because you can attract people through the solution and then they are more interested in seeing behind the scenes. So you can still follow a basic template where you always try to at least address the problem. You try to give them the backstory of how you really try to tackle it, and then the different results that you got from it, and of course the challenges that you had. Even if you don't have that in your case study, people are always going to be curious when you are interviewing. So keeping that in mind, you can take any sort of form and any sort of shape and form to make that case study. You can also pick your own platform. You don't necessarily need to be on all the platforms and create everything everywhere. That's just not humanly possible. Spreading yourself too thin on all the platforms mean that you're not really going to be good on any of the platforms, right? So what you can do is you can create a central place where you have your case studies. It could be a website or a Figma deck. Anything really works. Make that your one place of truth, and then that place of truth is going to be something which is going to help you to create your own narrative. When people see work online, and if you are on different platforms, platforms also dictate how people are really going to see that work. Oops. No worries. So platforms are always going to dictate how your work is going to be seen. For example, if you go on Twitter or LinkedIn, text works over there. That is a place where you get to show your writing. If you are someone who is comfortable with videos, maybe you go on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, and you can express yourself in video format. So whatever you're comfortable in, you can always use those different formats to share your content, to share your case studies, and through that, when people start to see that, and if it piques interest, they would want to see more of that, and that is when you would want them to come to this one place of truth, which is your website or your Figma, and this is where you get to control the narrative, because when someone looks at your profile, if they find everything everywhere, they are going to develop a certain opinion about you and your work. And when it's just spread across everywhere, it's very, you cannot really control it. People are going to see it differently. But if you have this place where you have created the website in the way that you want, the skills that you want to highlight, the best work that you have done, your best projects, then of course the narrative is in your hand, right? And you can also, you would say that if you have not worked in a real job yet, you're just getting started, in that case you might not have worked on real projects, right? And that's still okay. You can try working on side projects. As a side link, I've actually given a talk about side projects very recently in Berlin. I'll soon put it on my YouTube, where you can see the full talk and you can see how you can actually go about creating a side project. So I have shared some practical methods over there, but that's not the point. If you cannot create a side project, the other thing you can do is you can create concept work. In the last talk, you learned a little bit about how you can really how you can nourish your skills by doing the copy work. And this is the kind of work you would do in concept work. So imagine you're spending a lot of your time on YouTube, and there are some things on YouTube which you wish would have been different. or you just want to have that, you want to see that platform in a different light, you can try and redesign that. And by redesigning that or by copying the work, you're going to learn a lot of hard skills. I'm not a huge fan of the concept work project because I think you can really invest your time into creating some real work, that is side projects as well. And it's quite easy to really find those side projects or some real work to get started. To give you an example, you have some unique skills about translating boring stuff into visuals. When you look around, your grandma or your uncle or your dad, these people, they might be running a business or they might have a hobby and maybe they want to create a website or maybe they want to create something really tiny, but they don't really have the expertise for it. You can help them with that, and that becomes a real project because you're solving a real problem for someone, and that makes it for a good case study. But also, you're going to make your grandma, your dad, whoever that is, also happy. So you're killing two birds with one stone, except that just don't kill the birds. And when you start sharing a lot of this work, you're going to have people approaching you, and when they want to approach you, you also want to make it easier for them to be approached, right? If you see on Twitter, they have settings where I think by default Elon Musk decided that the DM should be closed, and that's why a lot of people find it difficult to really reach out to other people in DMs, even though they wanted to. So you just have to make sure that you are at least approachable and you have the right links, you have the right email wherever you're sharing your work, so people can reach out to you. And when they reach out to you, just respond to them like a human, don't be an ass. When somebody is coming to you asking if you can help them with something, even if the project might not be very interesting to you, the least you can do is at least let them know. They took the effort to reach out to you, so I think it's the basic human thing that you should do, that you should at least respond to them. The next one is engaging in online communities. I see that all of you are here. You're probably part of other communities as well, in Berlin or elsewhere. So I think you're already doing that. And humans are social animals. We obviously learn a lot or rely a lot on other people when we are around people in the communities, and especially if those are the people that also have a shared interest. There are ways that you can engage in communities. I would say that don't just be a lurker. Like a lot of people, they like to spend time on the internet, they've joined the communities, but they will never really contribute anything on that. They will be coming all the time. And that is key realization, join the communities, but they will never really contribute anything on that. They will be doing all the time. And that is key realization to have, that when you consume a lot of stuff, also try to contribute. And how you can do that? You can first join your local communities, and it doesn't necessarily need to be design communities. It can also be tech community, because your career is going to be made in tech if you are into digital design. To give you an example, I really like the Startup Berlin Slack community that we have in Berlin. How many of you have heard of Startup Berlin? Can I just get a quick raise of hands? One. I think 3 or 4 people. That's quite unfortunate. It's an amazing community.
Is there a startup event in November?
I'm not sure how they went. But the point is that in the Slack community, it's for all the people who are in startups, and you're going to get a lot of resources and links over there, people engaging with each other, they're sharing the job post, or they're sharing questions about how it is to work in startups in Berlin. You sometimes also get suggestions or links to apartments, and we all know that how difficult it is to find an apartment in Berlin. So you get to all those kind of resources. To share a little bit of a story here, my current job at Highground, I actually found it through Startup Berlin. One day when I was going through different channels, when I was in the job search, I was looking at Startup Berlin, just randomly this message about Highgraph hiring for a senior product designer. I just saw that on the Slack community, and I decided to reach out to that person who was the VP of marketing at that time. And that really started the conversation. And it led me to a place where I got hired, and then I also grew with the company. You can also join global niche communities. This is especially when you really want to practice some of the skills. So I'm not huge on fanboying on tools. Figma is a great product. It's almost a unicorn and a unanimous product. Almost everybody uses Figma in companies for their personal projects and for very use cases. So Figma has a very active Friends of Figma community. It used to be on Slack, but now they have it on Discord. They also have their developer or design advocates hanging out over there. So there's a lot of exchange happening where people talking to each other, exchanging knowledge, jobs as well, new content that they're creating. So you can obviously learn a lot from that. And the reason why I recommend Friends of Figma is not because you're passionate about Figma, but because it has become so unanimous and all the designers are hanging out over there anyway. So it's a big global community, and you're obviously going to benefit from it, not just for the tool Figma, but for the whole design space. When you start engaging in the community, I would recommend that you be helpful. As humans, we have this nasty habit that we take more than we give. And if you really want to benefit from a community that you are part of, if you try to focus on giving more than you take, that's going to make it very easy for you. To give you an example, you don't really go to a room full of strangers and just start promoting your product or start promoting your website over there, right? You would first read the room, you would see what's happening over there. Maybe you would engage with something that's already been shared. You try to also be a little helpful. If people have asked questions and if you know about it, you can answer that. And that's how you usually do when you're in a real life situation. So I don't think online is really different. You can take the same approach over there. I see this far too many times that people would join some online community and the first thing that they do over there is, hey, I've created this new case study, please take a look. Why the fuck would anyone care about your case study? You have not really built a rapport, right? You just showed up over there and asking people for their attention. And in today's day and age, attention is a huge currency. Everybody has lack of attention now. We are distracted at all the time. You're going to get bombarded with links all the time, and if you just ask people to click on your links, nobody is going to do that if you have not really done anything for them. Maybe you can see what other people have already shared. Maybe applaud them if you're in a Slack community, react to it, leave a comment, see what they've actually done. If you have questions about it, ask those questions. So just try to find ways where you can be helpful and you're automatically going to get rewarded for this. And this is not something, this is not a philosophy that I have come up with. Many of you might know Gary Vaynerchuk. He's quite huge in media industry. And he has this classic saying about, I don't exactly know how it goes, so I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like jab, 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 punch. It's like you keep on giving, and then when you think that the time has come, then you ask. And the likelihood of you really getting something is very high because you've already given a lot. Number 3, seek mentors and join masterminds. What I really mean by this is reach out to people that you find interesting on the internet. Internet has done one good thing for us, that everybody seems approachable and they are online. There are always ways for you to reach out to them. You don't really need to you don't really need to be best friend with someone for you to actually ask them a few questions. A lot of people are very kind on the internet, especially people who are the real deal. You would be amazed that when you reach out to them nicely, and if you appreciate their work, or if you give them context of why you are reaching out, and if you have seen their work, you also praise that work, and then you ask them a few questions, they would be very happy to help you with that. When I was getting started, I was studying engineering, and I was passionate about design at the time, and I was not in a position that I would just leave the engineering college and then start a new design degree. But I wanted to learn from the best of the best. And that's when I really went to the internet and I started looking at all the people who had already sharing their work. There were people sharing their case studies. There were not a lot of YouTube creators at that time, but there were a few people writing newsletters or podcasts. There was a lot of content, and I was just trying to curate that content and find the content which is relevant to me. So in my head, those people were already my mentors, just that they did not know that they were my mentors. And that connection didn't really have to happen, but you can do that now. You can really reach out to people. And when you do that, again, just try to support their work. If you see that they have been sharing something and it really resonates with you, instead of copy pasting one message to 10 people, you can follow these people and you can appreciate their work. And when you reach out to them, you can highlight something that really resonated with you. Maybe share a personal story. It just makes it more personal, and the likelihood of you making that connection is much higher. And I would suggest that instead of building short-term relationships, try to build long-term relationships. What I mean by this is, I see a lot of people, they go to ADP list, which is a great platform where you can find a lot of people who are available to provide mentorship. But what a lot of people do is they would try to connect with 10 people, ask them the same question, and not really trying to build that rapport with them. And to be honest, when you ask someone a question, they don't know much about you, they don't have a lot of context. It takes time to build that context, and it takes time for them to really understand your problem and to be able to help you with that. So if you try to identify some of these people where you really hit it off, or you think you resonated with them, maybe try building that connection and maybe try nurturing it over the period of time. That is going to give you a lot more benefits than what you do with just connecting with 15 random people, because the connection or the context is just not there. And lastly, you can also join peer groups. Mastermind is a very beautiful concept. I think it's very common in the US. Unfortunately, not a lot of people do it elsewhere. When you find people who are on a similar journey as you, maybe they are a step further or a step behind, they can share a lot of things which are going to be much more meaningful and useful to you than someone who has spent 15, 20 years in the industry. What they share then is not even relevant now, and you can't really connect what they say, and maybe they have so much expertise. What comes out of their mouth takes you like 5 years of being in the industry to understand that. But if you connect with people over here around you who are on a similar journey, and you try to build active relationship with them, where maybe you're meeting them every 2 weeks and you're sharing your struggles, they're also sharing their struggles, and then you're winning together, maybe they help you out with something. And the rapport that you're going to build over there is also going to keep you accountable, and it's a very clear recipe for you to grow together. Now that we have identified how we can get lucky, now let's look at how you can really get good at your work. A very simple way to also attract luck or opportunities is to be really good at what you do, because no matter how many jobs are available out there or how much of a competition you're seeing for a particular job, but if you're really good at something, the likelihood of you being selected for that is much higher, right? So how do you learn the most important skill, which is how to learn to learn? Identify what works for you. People who are going to preach you very different ways of doing things, and we know that humans are made different. Not everybody understands something in the same way as the other would. So you should just be open to try different methods and see what works for you, and then when you identify that, maybe try to double down on that. Try making feedback your friend. The critical the feedback is, it's more likely that you're going to get better at your work and much faster. I was lucky in a way that when I was working early at my first job, people used to give me a lot of critical feedback. It's a different matter that they were not giving me that critical feedback so I could really improve it. They were just tearing down my work. But then I really got some good feedback from that, and that made me improve much faster. So I see this, it's very common that at least when you're early in your career, receiving a critical feedback is a very harsh thing. It can be very emotional. But we need to develop that muscle over the period of time, because when we work with other people, you're going to get feedback every day and you're going to get punched right in the face a lot of times. But if you've already developed that habit where you can take critical feedback, it is just going to do good for you. So instead of running away from it, I always suggest people to just run into it. Get deep on your main skills, and then just try to be decent at other skills. Nowadays, you wouldn't really see a lot of specialized jobs out there. The tools that are available right now, and with the revolution that's happening with AI, it's becoming much more easier to do a lot of different kind of work. So when you get hired for a role, you're usually expected to be a generalist, especially if you're a product designer. So it's in your best interest to try and get really good at your main skill. So for a product designer, your main skill could be your UI design, it could be UX design. That is expected out of a product designer, it's in the job description. But then a product designer is also expected to do things like discovery, user research, user testing, quality assurance. Then also working with the engineers, working with product managers. Try to, whatever job that you are in, it applies to any of the roles, whether it's product designer or brand designer. Just try to think that when you start to work on something, what are the steps that are happening before and after your work? A lot of times, if you're a product designer, the strategy is being discussed from the leadership and the product managers. Just try to understand how they become a part of that. What is strategy really? What are they doing with all the road mapping exercises and different ways of collecting feedback? So you can learn something from that. What happens when you have completed your designs and the developers are going to implement it? You don't really need to be a specialized coder to really keep your job, but it goes a long way when you know how something is going to be implemented, because it's also going to dictate how you're going to design a particular solution. A lot of times, in reality, when you have a perfect vision, you might design the beautiful interface that you've ever seen. But most of that is not going to get implemented. The reality kicks in. There's going to be a lot of scope cut down, maybe because it's we don't have enough time to do that, or we don't have enough people, or we don't have enough expertise to do that. So that's going to happen a lot. And when you understand how other people are going to work and how they're going to run with your solution, it puts you in a very unique position. So try to just keep on getting better at those adjacent skills. And it's the adoption mentality that you need to have, where things are going to change no matter if you like it or not. It's going to keep on changing with all the AI tools that we have. So if you can really learn something faster, and if you are open to changing the way that you work, you're always going to be in a best position. I don't think that you even need to look at the competition. When sometimes I also have these thoughts that what would happen if I lose my job, and what would happen if AI just took over and a lot of work that I do is irrelevant. I don't really care much about it, because there's going to be need for someone to do something with the AI tools. And I don't think the AI is really going to replace designers, but it's the people that are able to use AI would probably replace designers who cannot use AI. So just try to have that curiosity up and always keep on learning things. Keep playing the game of curiosity. You can try and adapt the mindset of a gamer. When a gamer is playing a game and when they come across new challenges, they don't really get bothered by it. In fact, they're excited because there's a new challenge and there's a new level for them to unlock. They're more excited to play that. And if they keep losing and if the task is harder, they're going to have that much satisfaction when they really reach the end of it. So, and life is just like that. It's just a game. If you approach it with curiosity and if you try to keep on learning new things, things become very easy for you. Before I end my talk, I want to give you some anti-advice because I think anti-advice is just as important as the advice because, to be honest, you're not short on advice. You go on the internet, there will be 10 YouTubers screaming at you, telling you to do one thing in a certain way, to do the other thing in another way. And they're always contradicting each other. They're always trying to grab your eyeballs. So maybe I can give you some anti-advice in that case. So this, I would say, is something that you should not do to your career. Number one, don't pretend to be an expert. If you go online, especially if you're not really spent a lot of time in the craft that you have, it's going to come through. People are going to see that. People are going to tear you down for that. And expert is the last person who is really going to learn something in the room. You can learn a lot by just being a fool. Have that mindset of curiosity, ask stupid questions, and you're going to learn a lot. But if you pretend to be an expert, someone who knows it all, first of all, they are very annoying. And second, nobody really wants to teach them anything because they probably know everything. Second, don't chase the numbers on socials. I think it's, as we keep on using more and more social media tools, it's very natural that we are always looking for that dopamine hit. Whenever we post something, we are looking for those numbers to go up. Now, unless you really want to be a social media influencer and you want to make a career into it, then that's a different thing. Then of course you should be chasing numbers. If the numbers are not going up, you need to reconsider your career choice. But I think a lot of you are designers, especially if you're starting out. It's very important to focus on the craft, focus on the skills, and numbers are just a byproduct of it. And the approach that I usually ask people to take is to share your work and just document it. Think of it as a place, as a way that you are documenting as your career is happening. It's a nice way to really see how you're making progress, and of course, it attracts a lot of other opportunities and all that. But you don't really need to post something with the intention of getting a lot of likes. Number three, don't shy away from work. I don't know, for some reason, hard work has gone out of fashion. Sorry, not passion. Everybody thinks that things come very easily nowadays because you see the short reels, 20-second video tells you the meat of gives you the meat of the content. You don't really see what's happened behind the scenes. That creator who made that 15 seconds video probably spent 15 days thinking about it, conceptualizing it, and then creating that video. And there's a lot of work that goes into creating all these things. So you don't need to be shying away from the work that you get. You need to do the hard yards. You need to burn the midnight oil, especially if you're early. I know that work-life balance is very important. I believe more in work-life integration. And life is long. It happens in stages. At some point, it's very important for you to put in that extra work to get your first hit. But once that happens, things slowly start to get easier. And as you progress in the next stage of your life, then you can probably reap a lot of benefits from that. That is not to say that you should not enjoy what you're doing in the moment, just to live for something that is going to happen in the future. I think that is a recipe for disaster. You should always be enjoying what you do. But then there's also a lot of enjoyment in the hard work, right? So just try to do that work initially. It's going to give you a lot of rewards. And instead of running from it, I think we should run towards it. And the last one is just don't be an asshole. The world is already full of so much hate right now. We all know what's been happening in Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas. And I'm not even talking about US because US has been in a constant state of tear down. So that keeps on happening a lot, right? Nobody really wants another person who just hates on something. Instead of being a hater, try to be a creator. Share your work. Doesn't matter if people like it or not. Do it for yourself. But as a byproduct of it, people are naturally going to like it. I'll put this slide so that you can take a screenshot of this or a snap or a picture. I think I'm also happy to share the slides later. So I think the Spice or Bonanza team, they can do that. But you can feel free to take the picture. Maybe you find something useful here. I will count until 5 and then I will change. 5, 4. I think you've done it already. I'm going to change it. And with that, if you are interested in learning product design, I'm not selling a course here. You can just go to this website, productdisrupt.com. It's a website where you're going to find all the curated resources, which I personally use. You're going to find YouTube videos or newsletters or case studies or portfolios, whatever medium or platform that you're comfortable in, and however you intend to learn. You can find those resources from there. And I also send a newsletter. It's also called Product Disrupt every 2 weeks. With that, you can always get 3 to 4 job mentions over there. So people who are looking for jobs, you can always find that as a talent network. So you are going to find a lot of resources there. If you're interested, feel free to use that. It's all free. And with that, das ist alles. Thank you. I think we can open it up for questions. I think we have some time for it. How are we doing on the time? When I don't get questions, I always think to myself that either I've done a fantastic job that everybody understood everything, or people were just not interested. In that case, I need to work on my storytelling.
Well, I'm not a designer by trade, but I work in design, so it's hard for me to keep abreast of trends because I tend not to hear about them that happen. So where I'm going with this is like, if there's one skill aside from UX writing that designers will need less because of AI, which one do you think it would be? So if there's one area to like focus on less and other areas to focus on more, to like map their career ahead, accounting for what we know about AI now, where do you think it is? And also, sorry for the really complicated question.
I see that you're also leaning on the anti side of things. You want to know what you should not study. It's a very difficult question. I don't really think of it that often, that what is something that I don't require, because I have this habit where anything that I learn, I just want to make something out of it, and if it can translate into it being used in a real project, I'm always happy, so I'm just looking for that. I don't really think there's any skill that would not be required, but you can say, yeah, what is less required? I think anything that requires donkey work, what I mean by that, when people try to focus on learning design systems, it's always a hot topic. People try to lean too much into the tool side of things, like they want to become the masters in the Figma tool, or we used to have this thing where people were being the masters of Photoshop, and people are always putting those skills on their portfolio, where there would be like 7 out of 10 in Photoshop. And first of all, I'm like, what is 10? How do you even know that you're 7 out of 10? And like being too fixated on how good you are at a certain tool, I think that's just going to be irrelevant. And coming back to the example of design system, there are so many tools now, so many plugins now, which really allow you to do a lot of the donkey work in design system. Because to be honest, in design system, you do a lot of this work where you create tokens and variables and you apply it to all the components and you make sure that the components don't break. And a designer on my team, she spends a lot of time doing this. But then her job is also made a lot easier when she's using plugins, which actually do a lot of this donkey work for her. And you're going to see more and more of these tools allowing you to do the repetitive work. So that's why I always say that never be fixated on the tools. Just try to understand what the basics or what the core are of that tool or the skill that you're trying to learn. So always try to learn a skill instead of a tool. There's no point being a framer expert or being a webflow expert. I mean, you can always make money by getting featured on those networks as framer and webflow expert, but people are not looking for experts in certain tools. When people want something, they usually want a website to be made. They just want a fucking website. Doesn't matter what tool you're using and how you're doing it and if you're an expert or not. So I will always try to not stay away from tools but focus more on skills.
Thank you. So, do some notes. So, according to Jarek, he said that juniors should focus on the basic things like icons, UI, and then you say that the designers should be more generalist nowadays. So, what applies to juniors?
I think one key part you're missing over there, which is you should be focusing more on like building some of the main skills, the skills that you're going to be known for. For example, whenever there are product designers that are hired, they are expected to do a lot of things, so they are generalist, but they would always have one or two skills which they are really good at. There are some people on my team who are really good at visuals and UI design. So I know that I can trust them on setting up the foundation, or when something new is when we are starting something new, it's required to have that creative thinking and focus more on visuals. And these are usually the people who have solid typography. They understand the visual hierarchy. They understand how they can put together layouts. So they're really good with that. But then there are also a lot of other designers, because at any company that you work, they usually have design systems. So most of the times you're just assembling things with the components. So you having the taste of knowing how things are put together makes you a good designer already, because you don't really need to reinvent the wheel all the time. But when these special projects come up, or especially if you're working in an agency or you are doing freelancing, and then when you are required to actually come up with things from scratch, then it's going to be very important to have the very strong visual skills. So, and the thing is, with some of the skills, especially with UI design, it takes a lot of practice. There's no way that you can be a good designer without doing practice. It just takes a lot of practice. You have to put insane human hours. But once you have done that, you're going to reach a stage where you have become, you have reached the ballpark. Now, no matter what you create in UI, it's not going to be bad. It's going to pass that certain benchmark. But then there's nothing more than that. Then it just stops there. Now, if you create like a brilliant UI, which is a little bit better than what you created before, nobody's really going to care about it. Doesn't make a huge difference. But then there are other things like UX design, which is why I really enjoy UX design, because you're going to be thrown with a new problem every time. You need to apply different methods to solve that problem every time. And I don't think you can really reach a stage where you would say that now you give me any problem, I can solve it. Because the problems are going to be quite unique a lot of times in UX design, so you always need to solve that. So, long-winded answer to your question again. If you get really good at fundamentals, I don't think, no matter if you're a UX designer, product designer, interaction designer, whatever title you have, if you don't have the fundamentals, which is typography, visual hierarchy, putting layouts together, understanding of colors, in my opinion, you're not a designer. Those skills are the base, and you can become really good at that. So you can maybe specialize in that. And icons or illustrations, that's again like a separate skill. You decide if you're interested in icons, you can do that. But I don't care about icons. There are so many libraries available out there. I can use them. But some people who are specialist icon designers, they really can. But I don't think you want to go to that on that route, but you can if you want to. So focus on some of these fundamental skills. Be really good at that, and then keep on learning other things around it. They are just going to add to your armory. I hope that is not conflicting.
I still need to process everything.
All right. Do we have any more questions? If not, feel free to ask those questions later. You can go on the site and you will find the links to reach out. Usually available on Twitter, but you decide. And I think with that, my talk is done over here.
Thank you, Darshan. That was fantastic and very wide-ranging. We have a little break now, so we're going to go, have a little drink, help yourselves. If you could all come back here at 8:15, we have a fantastic panel coming up all about job hunting secrets. So yeah, not to be missed. Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
What you're doing now is maybe in my case.
I know you. Hi. It's me. I don't know. Is there anyone? There is serious. Can you have It's nice to meet you in real life.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Hi, we're about to start, so if we come back to our seats for the UX hiring panel.
How should I speak?
It works.
Yeah, we don't need to, we just cannot be close to each other because they will, yeah, let's just, yeah, it's fine.
Does it work?
Yes, fortunately, yes. So I would like to welcome on the stage Rory, Ines, come here. Hi. So before we start our conversation, I would like everyone to introduce yourselves. Ines, you can start.
Yeah. So hi everyone. My name is Ines. I'm a principal product designer at Zalando. Although they asked me not to mention that because I did not apply this talk as an official process talk, so I will tell it for you, but it's not out there in the marketing materials. And I'm also doing like part-time content creator job in Instagram, ines.ux. And I have my own educational program at school, actually, UX Pave. This is also what I do and promote for my Instagram and social medias. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Rory. I recruit design in Berlin for a company called Red Sofa. I cover everything from service design to UX research, product design, brand design, whatever titles we think next. I predominantly work on like design leadership and senior roles, but I've been through a few career changes myself over the years, and I really believe in trying to help people understand like that you can get there and you can transfer careers and try and share as much knowledge as well. And yeah.
Hello, my name is Kari. I'm a product designer, UX UI designer, and currently I work at Spice Academy as a UX UI design coach. Currently, my focus is teaching. I have also been a career changer, went through a lot of changes, started as a graphic designer, digital artist, a bit of animation, and then UX UI. That's why I have some tips for you how to transition to this career. My current focus and passion is teaching and also working on the product itself. I really love sharing my knowledge and also helping designers grow. And I have some students here, and it's really nice to see your faces. Yeah, that's it about me.
Okay, so I would like to start with the question for all of you guys, and that's what's the worst experience you had when either hiring a person or actually recruiting to a certain company?
Just generally
Okay, Rory, you can start.
how many swallows we like?
7.
I'd say one of the biggest points where companies fall down when they're hiring, and it's also something that's worth getting your head into understanding when you're looking for a job, because it can also, I can understand how it can really get you down as a candidate, is that like everything just takes ages. So like it's really busy trying to find a job at the moment. That's not to say it's unachievable, and it's also getting a lot better in the marketplace at the moment. But when you hit apply, you're one of like 500-600 people. Like, I generally post roles online because it's good for visibility and it's good to help people understand that there are jobs out there and the market's getting better. But like it just takes so long from start to finish, and I'm always advising companies that they need to streamline the process and put some design thinking to it, etc. I'd say one of the worst processes, like one of the worst things that's happened, let's just say this year, was that I had a candidate waiting like nearly 2 months to get an offer to them, and that was just really bad for everyone involved. So yeah, I'd say that the general pace of things is quite painful at the moment. I'm not trying to be like negative about it. I'm just trying to help people understand some of the hurdles that they might come up against, and also like if you don't hear back straight away, it's nothing personal. It's just the fact that there's so many people applying for jobs. It just means that everything takes 10 times as long.
I have one experience. I'd like to share that, and it has been one of the worst experiences for me being hired as a UX UI designer. And the reason I'm sharing this is to give a bit of perspective that sometimes it's not only the candidate's fault, but it can be also company's fault, their preparation fault. The UX UI team sometimes doesn't take enough time to get ready because they treat it as another process that they have to go through, and it creates problems. My experience was the following. So I'm actually from Armenia, Yerevan, and I applied to one of the biggest tech companies, and I had very high expectations, which brought me to the point of getting prepared, spending a lot of time, preparing myself for the interview and everything. So the first process was amazing. At the first stage of the interview was amazing, and then they got back to me with this whiteboard challenge. Okay, let's invite you for the whiteboard challenge. And I'm not sure if you are aware of it. It's just a challenge. They give you the prompt when you are there, and they give you some 30 minutes, depends, and you have to come up with solutions. And the idea is to see you solve design problems right away so that they can understand your design thinking, your problem-solving abilities. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Again, prepared well enough, went with certain expectations. What is the typical whiteboard challenge? What are the stages? And I was ready. And then I went there, and some people were missing from the team. And they were like, yes, they are busy doing something else. They will show up soon. Let's start the challenge. And okay, let's start the challenge. They gave me a prompt, and it felt really, they weren't prepared at all. They were like, okay, what if you are facing this challenge? And they added another challenge, and I was really confused. I really needed a clear prompt, and they were adding points as they went. It created a lot of confusion for me to solve this problem. Hence, other team members showed up. They brought their own suggestions to this prompt, and it took us an hour to be like, okay, what is the prompt actually? And I couldn't solve their problem because the problem wasn't clarified. So this was a bad experience because on the team level, they had different attitudes, and they were challenging me as they went. They weren't prepared, and both members, like my side, on my end, I was not happy. On their end, they were not happy. Hence, it was a failure. It's just an experience, and you should be ready for everything. This field is very dynamic, and there are so many situations that are not anticipated, and you just have to deal with it and come up with solutions. And it's also related to the whole process of how good you are at problem solving, and this is what makes you a good designer in general.
Yeah, to add to that, I think a lot of the times the hiring process is unnecessarily stressful. It's just like, come on, it's not the end of the world. We don't need to stress about it. And like hiring a person when 4 or 5 people come into the room and trying to like get an answers from you, it feels like really, really stressful for you. So I think the advice to those kind of things is just take a brief moment, and you don't need to answer immediately, I think. So, but yeah, I don't know why it needs to be so stressful, especially because we tend to have at least an hour or two to fix some mistakes that we did when we were working as a UX designer.
Yeah, that's very good that we are providing different perspectives on the hiring process. I will give you the perspective from a hiring manager, because I've been hiring for the agencies where I used to work, for companies, so a lot of years, more than 5. I failed to count that. And actually, it may seem that like from the hiring managers, it is all figured out. Like it's all very like very chill, right? You know, like, and we are not stressed, but we are also stressed about that because every day that we don't hire a person and there is no one to do the job, it means that some other people in the team are stressed, and you are stressed because they are not satisfied, they are more likely to leave. So it's very, very important. And so when it comes to the worst hiring experience, of course, I have some jokes and some funny stories that are good to tell over like a drink in a bar. But honestly, overall, it rarely happens. And most of the people fail not because they are doing something outstandingly outstandingly bad and like shocking, but just because they fail to think coherently, and they fail to maybe calm down a bit, maybe to kind of interact with the person in the room, right? So they become paralyzed with the questions. They freeze, and they kind of fail to think strategically. Sometimes they fail to think, like applying design process at the right moments, right? So asking me questions about resources that we have, like what is the essence of the task if we are talking about whiteboard exercise, right? And so honestly, of course, of the people we interview, we only hire one person, right? So like, and all others, they kind of blur. But overall, I would say it is something to look at because it's very visible from the hiring manager perspective when the person just either don't know how to apply the design thinking and the double diamond mostly to any task at there, or they kind of like too nervous, right? And they freeze. We, as like, if we are trained hiring managers, we're not there by chance, but really by the expertise. We're also aiming to set people for success, because the sooner we close the position, the more happy be everybody in the team. So it's also like a partial responsibility of the hiring person to set our personal success. So sometimes they also fail. Yes, I also been interviewed by really awful people who just like who do not like even look at you like in the camera like just like typing while you're in there trying to figure out how to solve the challenge that they are providing. But if this is not the case, right, and this is like you feel that the person here in the room really interested in helping you, then don't like also nothing will happen. Like you will just get a no, and nobody died from that. Most of the time, right? So, and then, I mean, like, if this is not a hunger in your region, and you're really relying on this job right now, but mostly, I hope it's not the case in Germany. Yeah, so like, and then like, just try to not stress too much. Just try to interact with normal person, just as a person who is as interested in you succeeding as you are.
I think, like, there is, as Darshan also spoke about it, there is a certain situation right now where it's pretty challenging environment to actually start your career. But actually, I think understanding what's behind the wall of the recruitment and hiring process will help you essentially get a job, and you will if you're more understandable about the certain things that will happen, you just simply can benefit from maybe using certain areas to your advantage. And that's where I would like to ask Rory, you first, it would be really nice. Could you explain the current stage of the hiring industry and what would be the problems with it?
So I'd start talking about like what the average hiring process is like, so everyone can understand it, and then I'll sort of try and talk about how I think that can be improved. So on average, hiring processes run from like 6 to 8 stages normally. I'm always advising clients to get it down to 4. I need to understand my clients as well and try and get my head into like why they need so many processes and sort of stages in the process, and help them understand why this can be really off-putting for candidates, and that it's quite a lot of time to give up, and they're making something that can be quite simple, really complicated, and trying to find a compromise in the middle. My compromise is like 4 stages. And the example I always give is that my friend's fiance years ago, she interviewed at MI6, and that was 6 stages. So I don't know like why a huge security agency has fewer stages than like some startups. But also, I don't work in tech, I don't work in design, I'm just a little guy trying to help make it easier. The common process for interviews is that you'll have a call with like someone working in TA or a recruiter. Sometimes this can be really good. Sometimes I personally think it's something they should just get rid of. In the instance where I think it's really good is you can speak to someone like Leila from Miro, who knows design inside out and can really answer your questions about design and sell a company's design culture, and like really get that designer excited about that company and like get them on board. I'm sure it's amazing people that design as well, so I'm not your name's got there. But a lot of the time, small startups, this first stage TA call, they'll be putting a designer in to speak to someone that doesn't have a clue about design. And that's not that person's fault, it's because that person will be hiring for like design, marketing, product, engineering. They'll have all these different scripts they have to follow. And the design one will generally be like a very sort of entry-level thing. So they'll be hiring like senior designers and asking them, I've never opened Figma in my life, but I've opened it, I don't know how to use it. But like, they'll be asking them really basic questions about Figma, and then I'll check in with the candidate afterwards, and I'll be like, well, I've been doing this for 8 years, why am I being asked these questions that are kind of almost junior? So that's like the first stage of the process, and something you should get ready for is to have to put on a face and talk about design to someone that probably doesn't understand it. And I'd say the best bit of advice there is like, just be as eager as possible, even if it's hard to be, like, just try and show like that you're super excited. And I know it's hard when you're interviewing for loads of different companies, you need to try and put all these different faces, like I'm into fintech, I'm into fashion, I'm into companies that sell furniture, you have to constantly wear those different hats, but like you have to really like ooze enthusiasm at that stage, because that's the first touch point. So you really need to like make a great impression. And a lot of it is about just putting this mask on and getting through it, but it gets you to the next stage. Second stage is always an interview with a hiring manager. This is the one I always tell early stage companies and try and challenge my bigger clients with it to like just go straight to that hiring manager, because no matter what that first TA call does or says about you, like, again, this isn't belittling it in any way whatsoever. I understand these jobs and why they exist, and I work closely with a lot of these people, a lot of my friends, etc. But like, it's the hiring manager that's going to be the decision maker. So I'm always thinking like, do that call first with them is my solution. I try and suggest lots of clients. And in that second call, you will just talk about design, basically. So asking about your design process. They might say like, what products do you like and why? What do you want to learn in the company, etc. Then third, fourth stages. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated. Again, I understand why these processes are here, but I'm always trying to challenge them to try and find that compromise and make design improvement a better place for everyone. So yes, it's like the whiteboard challenge where you have loads of people in the room throwing loads of questions at you. It's a bit stressful and intense. I'm like, man, it gives me anxiety just thinking about it. I've never sat in one. And I always say to them, like, a lot of the time in these processes and a lot of the hurdles that designers face in the process of like designs are generally more like left or right. I can't remember which it is, but the more creative side of the brain. And then they'll be being assessed by product people and engineers and one with these tool. But they're more like right, like math side of the brain. So it's kind of like you've got one person who communicates in a certain way and speaks about things in a certain way, being assessed by people who don't have that kind of mindset. So you need to like prep yourself to like talk using data, which is really hard, but it's just a good mindset to get into. And then the other one they do is like a design challenge. So sometimes I'll give you some homework to take home, and yeah, it takes ages and it sucks, but it's just there. I've been doing this for like nearly 7 years now, and that design challenge has always been there, and I just can't see a way around it. And I kind of guess, yeah, it's there for a reason, and even though you have a portfolio, they still want to see how you can apply your design skills to their product and their company and what ideas you can come with. My bit of advice about that is like, once you've done 4 or 5 of them, maybe even 3, just say, look, I've already done a few of these, can I just present these to you? And it never hurts to ask. They might just say, no, we need you to do our one, which is, you just have to do it. Sadly, it sucks, it makes it hard work for everyone. But, it's hard work for people in the companies as well that have to adhere to these processes. I'm sure you can't affect the landlords that much, can you? Yeah. But yeah, so like that's like a little sort of like hack for that. Is like just having that work ready and be like, I've already done this for certain companies. This is this, and then that normally moves on to the final stage where it's like another interview with the hiring manager, and they'll just go through questions like salary and stuff like that. So like sadly, it is around like 4 to 6 stages depending on the company size. Does that answer your question? I've gone off on a big tangent there.
As always. Yeah, I think, but I have a follow-up on this, and honestly, I don't have an answer for that. So, what do you guys think is the reason of such a weird process?
Well, that's a tough question, but I can give a bit of insights because now I have the privilege to also be part of the hiring process, which puts me in this chair to observe and see the candidates. And I was there before, and it's a very interesting perspective. And I can share what I'm looking for personally, and what helps me say, yes, this candidate is a total yes, or for some people we say maybe. And that can also be helpful for you as designers to kind of see the other perspective, what's happening on our own end when we ask you to come for an interview or for a mock session. How do we evaluate your skills? So the evaluation basically consists of different points, but for me personally, most of my team members is like, are you a fit for the team culture itself? Because we kind of have developed a certain team, we have certain work dynamics, and we want to see if you are a good match for the team. Because there are cases we see a perfect UX UI designer with like years of experience, but then we feel like on a communication level or some other levels, we do not match. And yes, we can tell you we are sorry that we cannot move on with you, but that doesn't mean that you are a bad candidate or there are problems with you as a UX UI designer. It can be that for our specific team, the responsibilities and the tasks and the vision that we have, we kind of didn't align, which is okay. And the other one that really makes a difference for me personally is the personality. Honestly, UX design is very standardized, and I'm sure you also have heard all those terms that we have been mentioning throughout the whole evening, and it feels like cliched somehow. It has been standardized, but this is one important point that I also tell to my students, like, yes, it's standardized. Yes, this is the roadmap. Yes, you have to do this and that, but please keep your personality. This is how you stand out. This is how I will remember you. And find your voice. I think I also talked with at the podcast about this. It's very important to show personality, show some character. Surprises. This is how I'm going to say, oh my God, that was a different turn. We didn't think of it. Let's take it forward. It's interesting. We want to work with this person. And that can help you stand out. You know how competitive the market is, and it's getting more and more competitive. And if you don't know what makes you stand out as a designer, as a person in general, you should think of it. And also, like, really connect to this one important idea. Why do you want to become a product designer? Why do you want to enter this market, this industry? Honestly, if it is because of like the money, the salary, you should think of it twice, because it's competitive and it's very intense. Like it's not about doing the work on a technical level, it's about also bringing your skills, your soft skills, communicating, collaborating, sharing your ideas, stakeholder. Like there are a lot of factors, a lot of people involved, not even talking about developers yet. But so like have a good understanding of what it is, why you want to do it, and what is happening on the hiring end. If you understand those perspectives, I think you are good to go. You are prepared.
This is like really, really important what you said. And one of the things that I would like to add to it is considering the personality. If you're applying to a job and you're just applying with easy apply on LinkedIn and just rapidly sending out CVs 100 without reading the job description, that means you are sending CVs to companies that you didn't even find interesting just reading about. And actually, you want to find a job that's gonna be tailored towards you as well. And if you're applying to 100 positions, you don't know which of them is the favorite of yours. And I think you should be applying to these ones first without just applying randomly to the other ones. For example, if you see an UX UI coordinator at automotive industry, and it might be even a junior position, just think about it twice if you really want to work in the automotive industry. If you're going to apply to it, you create a more noise in the industry, and that's where the hiring recruiters will have a problem with finding the right person, because there are 200 or 300 people. If you're actually going to aim your application towards the jobs that you found interesting, it might be also a good match on the other side. So just think about it. And I actually coming up with another question to that and the hiring process. I would like you guys to discuss the really common mistakes that you find during the recruitment, or with the things that you find are unlike you. So, and probably my microphone died. So I'm gonna speak very loudly. Or just take the other one, that's the better idea. So, this one is full, that's great. Then, what are the things that annoys you the most?
Yes, that's a very good question. So to answer that, I will describe you my day as a hiring manager. So like now I have a privilege to work in a very big company where not only me doing the portfolio assessment, and the way we go about that is that we have a blocker in our calendar, like for 2 hours every week. And if we are free to participate in this or not. Sometimes we have a nudge from our recruiters, like, hey, can you support here? There is no one doing this. And then we basically go, what we're doing this to our blog, and then we go to LinkedIn Recruiter. There is another like dark side of LinkedIn. And so I go there and I see all the applications that was sourced by our researchers, I'm sorry, researchers, also researchers, recruiters, yes. And then I review them and have basically provide like yes or no, you know, like, and we also do it in the greenhouse, like doesn't matter the tool. And this work is very, very daunting. Although like recruiters did the first assessment already. So this is like kind of the second step, right? And honestly, the major problem on this stage is everything is so repetitive. It's like I am in the, it's like, I don't know, I'm in a time machine that repeats every day, like every 5 minutes of my time repeats itself, because like I go there and there's a standard portfolio with a standard bootcamp case. I already know, and believe me or not, but I already know, like, okay, this is a case study that they did in Career Foundry. 100%, 100%. I'm always right, 100%. So like, this is like another one, Iron Hack. Okay, got it. So, you know, and there is nothing new. And there is sometimes just a couple of portfolios goes one by one, they have the similar cases. And this is the problem really, because I cannot see who you are as the people, like what am I looking at? Like, so it's really hard to see who you are as a person behind that, as you said, right? And this is what I'm lacking, and this is, I think, the major mistake. If you are being ghosted, if nobody is replying to you, then this might be one of the problems. If you are not even in the hiring process itself, you are not even talking to other person, right? I have to make a decision based on just like one page or like 3 case studies. First, my recommendation would be also to show me who you are as a person, and how to do that, you might ask. I was actually also struggling to identify the right answer and the right recommendation to fit everyone and to explain what I mean. But in time, I actually found this example. I had a mentee just recently, so the market is saturated, everything as we know it right now, and she was also after a couple of boot camps, nothing original in her portfolio, basically 3 cases from the Career Foundry. And then we start talking, and she said like, okay, but how can I find more projects? Where can I find them? Like, I'm starting with that, and then we talked. She was working for 5 years on the security line in a very small airport in Turkey. And then the processes were messy, the people were annoyed there, right? So like a huge queues, right, on the security line. And she was telling me like, okay, but I did nothing special in there. I just secured, like, you know, like checked bags there. But then we talked deeper, and she said, but I always, like, why I decided to become a UX designer? Because I kept thinking for 5 years, for the fuck's sake, can't you just create an app? People can like book an appointment, like for the security line, or see how many people are there in the security line. And she was like thinking, and she was so annoyed by that. She eventually created a case study, kind of improving this process. She knows, she was a subject expert on this process. She transferred that to the UX design. She created ideas, she created better experience. It was not a real project, but it doesn't matter. She went there and fixed things. And this is what I believe designers should do. We go and fix things. There is so many things wrong in the world. And the way you pick up things that you want to fix shows me who you are as a person. This is as simple as that. So this is like my recommendation, because first of all, it's hard to choose by the portfolio. And then if we invite this person to the deep dive, they can't actually tell us a coherent story, a story that I want to listen, because the story will be just, I went to the Career Foundry, and they gave me this project, like I did that, like I did, this is my process, double diamond, I follow double diamond in all cases, I apply that. So, and there is no story, it's very hard to judge anything. And the person who can tell the story, where I see why they are a designer, why they want to be a designer, and how it applies to their work. They might not be like, even have an experience, they might go straight after school, but there is something why they have chosen this profession. And this is what I want to see. Yeah.
I just want to add something to the points that you mentioned. Storytelling is very important, and I assume you can agree or disagree, but sometimes, like, because you see a lot of portfolios, you already have an impression right away, and it makes you stop or move on. And your tone of voice, your storytelling, the strategies that you think, okay, I will do this to make it different, is literally related to your passion. Why did you pick up this in the first place? If you're passionate about it, if you are like, yeah, I can relate to this problem comes from my core, like I understand it, you have a different tone of voice. And believe me, it is literally reflected in your portfolio, and we see it. This is when hiring managers stop and they're like, wait a second, something is different here. Whereas if you follow this templates or standard attitudes, you end up being just another candidate who, there's nothing wrong about it, but considering the fact that there are 100 or like 50 or more applicants for the same job position, what will help you stand out is your storytelling, your tone of voice, your reasons behind the problem that you picked and how you solved. And again, I think portfolio is the best place to see your problem-solving skills as designers, and the way you share it is another good chance for us to understand like how you did it. Because
just to add to that with the storytelling thing, that's like a skill that will always come up in your career. So, you know, at a surface level, when you're just starting out, it's like storytelling about your portfolio, and maybe storytelling about yourself and reasons why you want to be a designer. But when it comes to, like, I'm sure you both know this, or you all know this, like, storytelling will stay with you throughout your career. So you need to get buy-in from difficult stakeholders, like we need to spend money on user research. Like, you have to really tell stories of, like, this is a product, this is why I failed because of this, or if we don't do this, this will happen. So there's things that will, like, skills that you start picking up at the start of your career that are just worth spending time on sharpening, because they'll always be in your tool set. And the sooner you develop them, the better, because they really help you in every single part of your job.
Just, I hope you agree on this one. Just do not put a case study about your portfolio in your portfolio. Yes? Or no?
I always say if you're struggling for case studies, that could be a good like freebie.
Ignore. Okay. Okay, guys, we have 8 minutes, so I would like to open a Q&A session just for a bit. So if you have, that's brilliant. Can you scream, or should I run to you with the microphone?
Yes, I teach, so I scream. My question is, if, especially for Ines, because you're a hiring manager, right? Or you're a recruiter. You said that that task of going to the back end of LinkedIn, the LinkedIn hiring process is daunting, right? And I suppose that most of the students find that whole process frustrating. So now, from a UX perspective, why is anybody doing this? Right? I mean, nobody likes that process, apparently. I just knew from my students that they don't like to apply through LinkedIn. And now I'm hearing from you that you hate it too. So why is everyone, you know, from a UX perspective, as UX designer, I would ask why, you know, why is everybody doing this?
You know, the problem is not in LinkedIn as an interface or in Greenhouse or in any other tool. The tool actually doesn't matter. The process that what is making it daunting is just the repetitive, the same portfolio.
But just one comment, I mean, I did it once or twice for fun, and it's because that process does create a repetitive, I mean, it doesn't ask, how do I phrase this? It doesn't ask for individualism, you know? I mean, you're not being asked to put, I mean, you're actually asked to dump down your story to the process. And so nobody will provide an inspiring story through a LinkedIn process. That's what I'm so concerned about, you know? And then companies are complaining about that it's so uninspiring. That's because they put a process out there that makes every portfolio uninspiring. That's just my impression.
Yes, it's a very good observation and question. So I have thought about that, and there are, like, of course, multiple reasons. So my intake on this is that, first of all, I think that this process actually initially comes from a good place, because people want to kind of standardize ways we hire other people to also bypass a bias. Because maybe if you have a loud voice, if you are like I don't know, experienced in public talking, right, in teaching, your voice could be louder, right, and it could bypass a voice of a woman, maybe I don't know, like of a color, right, a person of color, like, and this is the way we try to standardize the hiring process, also to provide equal chances. And that's why, yes, it's daunting. It's why it seems like, oh my God, should I create this CV once again? Why can't you just look at the portfolio, right? It's not only we align designers, but we try to align other job functions also, and that's why this process is kind of a middle ground between how you would hire a developer, a PM, a designer, right? Because we are like there, I think, try to provide equal chances for everyone. This is the first idea that I have in mind, why it is the way it is. The other thing is that not in every company, designers have a voice into the hiring process. So in some companies, there is a privilege like that, so I assume like I'm in the privileged position, we can define the hiring process for our community, and like developers, for example, they define their own hiring process. But this is very rare. Sometimes it's just not enough time, not enough designers. They are too far away from this area, right? It's hard to influence, and that's why there are recruiters that have a task to also hire like everyone, like, and follow the same process, right? And they might want to do good, they just don't know how, and they like err on the side of the caution and goes with the process that everyone does. So this would be my thing. I don't know, Rory, so about the hiring process, do you want to add something? Okay, thank you. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just wondering, everybody hates it, it should go, right?
Yeah, I think like
what I'm thinking.
One thing is like one way, it's really cheesy, but like you have to think about the UX of your application, and it's like you have to put your mindset. And I know, not thankfully, you wouldn't have to deal with hiring, but it's like every time you post a job, there's hundreds of applications, and it's like having to think. So things like not having your portfolio password on your CV, if it's password protected, like that sets you back 2 stages. And I know it sounds like diva-ish, but like if you click a hyperlink on the portfolio and it takes you actually to the page it's supposed to, that's great. And this isn't recruiters being lazy, but it's just thinking about the UX of the application. If you click a hyperlink and it doesn't work, it's like, what does that say about that person being detail oriented? You know, these are things I need to work on myself, and this isn't about throwing shade or moaning about things. It's about sharing common areas where everyone makes these mistakes and normalizing them and helping everyone kind of like realize these little details are really, really important in your application. Things like how you structure your CV. I put content on it today, about like just making your CV design really good. And I'm, you know, I kind of like scan a CV very quickly because we have to do that in our deep dive into the portfolio. But I was working with a designer who, like a hiring manager, who I thought was initially a bit picky, but after a while I really got into his mindset because he's kind of old school. He comes from like a physical product design background. He's very design systems. He's like, he's in design systems thinking. He's like, I look at the CV and I can tell whether or not I like that person as a designer. Just by the layout, you know, it's these old school things like typography, hierarchy, font, how the information is put together. These are really core principles that you can really shine with these things on your CV quite easily with some bonus points. And this is where a lot of people sadly go wrong, where the process is a bit broken, and why it can take so long is because you have this sea of like CVs and portfolios where there's all these like the whole process is disjointed. We're trying to get to the work and assess it and things like that. So it's trying to make the CV in your portfolio really functional, but also really simple, which I feel kind of chimes well with your product design.
Yeah, so treat your application as a UX challenge.
So you should put them in your portfolio.
Shit.
I have a quick question, general one. How important are keywords? I mean, I know they are kind of important on keywords relevant here, so I designed it. But your portfolio, like the landing page or your CV resume, how important is it to have like keywords flashed on the page?
Like, I don't think it's really important that your portfolio is like super good on the CEO level, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Ines, if you're looking for a designer, you're not going to Google and searching product designer.
Yeah, there's like core like softwares. There's like core softwares and skills that like every designer uses and every designer has. So it's like everyone uses Figma, everyone does this, everyone does that, and you see the same skills listed again and again and again. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't know how the big evil like ATS systems work with recruitment. I saw a lot of stuff about if you copy and paste the job spec and put it in white on the second page of your CV. I probably should say that stuff. Apparently it makes you more hireable, because when you put it into a giant ATS system, it's doing like scanning huge amounts of data. Apparently it bumps your application up. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's, yeah, okay. I thought it was like a LinkedIn conspiracy. Yeah, okay. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. But okay, I was set on Selena. I was like, surely not. I haven't been listening to it. Okay, we can put a bullet in that one side quite well. But like, no, I'd say don't worry too much about the buzzwords. The key thing is like what your job title is and what your experience is and what you're good at and what you want to do, essentially.
Okay, so let's try to have one more. Just we can speak. Come on.
Yeah. How important is the cover letter nowadays?
I'd say CV is more important than cover letter. Like, you should be able to get like a good CV should make a hiring manager think like, right, I want to hire this person. It's like all the information's there. It's easy to read. It gets your attention in a short time span, and then following on to that for like a deep dive into the experience is a nice smooth user journey. So like if I get a really long cover letter, like I haven't got time to read it. It's not going to. Yeah, it could be considered a nice introduction, but ultimately a cover letter's not going to win the job. It's the skills and how you present them that will win the job. And like even if you were applying for a job where you don't quite feel you're fully qualified for, which I'd encourage because it's a good experience to get yourself out there. Like no matter how good a cover letter you write, that's not going to be that job. It's how your CV and portfolio come together and how you present yourself in the CV. In an interview.
Let's try to have one more.
Quick question: when you are transitioning from a totally different background to UX and you already did some design whatever, but how much important to put in your CV the previous work what you had, which has nothing to do with UX design? How much important to put it in?
I'd say from like some of these like. So I sort of sit in the middle of like between like internal recruiters and designers, and then we're the agency trying to help people get the jobs. I'd say I'm a key believer in like transferable skills. I was a chef for 10 years, then worked in like music events for 5 years, and managed to keep afloat in recruitment for 7 years. And sometimes it can take you a while to realise these key skills, but I'd say there is always a link that's ties one job to another job to another job. So like maybe try and put in posts out or even asking on Reddit or in communities if anyone's had the same journey as you to see if you can draw from that. But sorry, I'm trying to make more sense here. If you can summarize it into a story of like, I used to do this and that helped me learn this and I want to do that, it will help make more sense rather than just having a CV, which mine is probably like where it's just loads of stuff all at once. So like, just again, back to storytelling, being able to storytell like, I used to do this, now I do this, and I want to do that. Hope that answers your question.
Just as a last, I think Ines gave a really good example on how to elaborate your previous experience with the case study.
Yeah, this was more like the question: should I mention it on my CV, or like it's enough just like the key points to put it, for example, in the portfolio, like how about the transmission, explaining that.
Yeah, I think like the framework that Rory mentioned is a good one. Okay, guys, unfortunately we're out of the time, so I think thank you all for participating in the lecture. Thanks our speakers, and also Darshan. Hope you understand. Cool. Then again, thank you very much for participating, and Be sure to check all of the social media that we gathered so far. So Rory, Ines, Karen. Yeah, thank you very much.
Demo with video sheet. You think the video was super? Yeah, I should have said.